In this video, we'll configure Workspace ONE single sign-on and conditional access for iOS and Windows devices. Before you can do the procedure in this video, you need to have already integrated Workspace ONE UEM with Workspace ONE Access and integrated an app, such as Salesforce, with Workspace ONE Access. These procedures are shown in some other videos I've made. Almost all the tasks for this video are performed in Workspace ONE Access, except the first task, exporting the root certificate for integration. For this first task, we'll use the Workspace ONE UEM console. The organization group is at the customer level. To get to the right place, there are two routes. The first is from the Getting Started Workspace ONE page. Scroll down to Connect to Workspace ONE Access. Click Edit. Scroll down to the Certificates section. Sometimes instead of seeing the certificate information as we do now, there is an Enable button. If you see that, click it. But let me show you also the other way to get to this page. In the left panel, click Groups and Settings, All Settings, System, Enterprise Integration, Workspace ONE Access, Configuration. Scroll down until you find the Export button. Click Export. The certificate file is downloaded. I also want to show you this other configuration just above the certificate section. Use auto-generated API key. I think this setting enables the compliance check, which we'll see later. When I click this button, it says that the existing settings are already using the existing auto-generated API key. Okay, close that window. The rest of the tasks are done in Workspace ONE Access, so an easy way to get there is to click the waffle, right-click Workspace ONE Access, and open it in another tab. Then log in, click the user icon, and select Workspace ONE Access Console. First, we'll enable the compliance check so that Workspace ONE can verify that the device is compliant with security requirements before it lets the user access the application we're deploying. Click the Integrations tab, UEM Integration, scroll down to the Compliance Check section, click Enable, and click Save. Next, click Authentication Methods, and we'll configure a few of them. First, note that Compliance Check is enabled, but let's take a look at its configuration. Now, I think that the reason this is already configured correctly and we don't have to enter the Workspace ONE UEM API key is that button that we looked at in Workspace ONE Access, above the certificate configuration. It said we were using the auto-generated API key. Click Save. Okay, so that's enabled. Next, we'll enable Mobile SSO for iOS. Scroll down and select the Mobile SSO for iOS, and click Configure. Enable KDC authentication and click Select File so that we can upload that certificate file that we downloaded from the Workspace ONE UEM console. This one, VIDM AirWatch Root Certificate.sir. Click Open and click Yes in the confirmation box. There it is. We'll scroll down to see all the other options available. Use the tooltips to learn more about them. Click Save. Next, we'll configure Windows SSO. Select Certificate Cloud Deployment and click Configure. Enable the certificate adapter and then click Select File so that we can upload that same certificate file. Click Yes to confirm. We'll turn off Use CRL from Certificate for this exercise because I don't know the location. We can use the defaults for the rest. Click Save. Now certificate authentication is enabled for SSO on Windows. Next, we'll need to configure the built-in identity provider. Select Identity Providers. Click Built-in. Scroll down to the Users section. Select the user group that you used when you added and synced an AD user group in Workspace ONE Access, as shown in an earlier video. In the Authentication Methods section, you see that all the methods that we just configured are selected. Go ahead and also select passwords so that we can use that as a fallback method. Also, that lets the tenant admin log in. For network, select all ranges, and then we need to download the KDC certificate, which we will use when configuring the iOS profile. Click Save. Next, we'll create an SSO policy. Go to Resources tab and select Policies, Add Policy. We'll call it Mobile SSO and Compliance Policy. It's for iOS and Windows. The application it applies to is Salesforce. Now we'll add a policy rule for iOS. Leave the network set to all ranges. For device type, select iOS. Leave the groups empty so it will apply to all users. Leave perform this action set to authenticate using. For the method, select mobile SSO for iOS. Click the plus sign because you also want to select device compliance. For the fallback method, select password cloud deployment, just in case for this exercise. Scroll down and click Save. Click Next and click Add Policy because we are going to add a policy for Windows. Now, unless you have configured the Salesforce app to be imported from the Microsoft Store for Business, the rule that you are about to create will not come into play. The steps are included here so that you can see what they are. Instructions for importing apps from the Microsoft Store are described in the product documentation guide, App Management for Windows in Workspace ONE UEM. Select Windows 10 for the authentication method, select Certificate Cloud Deployment, and add the compliance check. For fallback method, select Password Cloud Deployment, click Save. Click Next and add one more policy for web browsers, and then just authenticate using the password. Click Save. Click Next on the summary page. Click Save. In the next video, we'll create SSO profiles to deploy identity provider settings. For more Workspace ONE technical resources, be sure to visit techzone.omnissa.com.